They kicked my door in, they smashed my wife's photo, and then they stood there smiling like they'd done the neighborhood a favor. Yeah, that's how my quiet life got its first headline. I'm Jack Daniels, retired soldier, ex-defense contractor, and I bought 5 acres to get away from the noise. Turns out the noise followed me home. Let me back up a sec. I wanted a porch swing and a garden, not a war, but the cottage I found tucked against a stand of pines felt like a promise. Peeling paint, sagging porch, the kind of place that holds its history like a secret. And me, I liked secrets, I like fixing things. For years I spent my afternoons patching roofs, turning over soil, turning the attic into a room that smelled of old books and winter light. Evenings were long walks listening to leaves. Mornings were coffee on a creaky step while the world slowly woke up. It was the kind of ordinary peace you don't appreciate until somebody tries to take it. Across the lane was Maple View Estates, all trimmed hedges and beige houses that looked like they came off the same assembly line. And at the center of that tidy universe was Karen Bradshaw, HOA president, unofficial queen, a woman whose smile never quite met her eyes. You meet people who need to control the world to feel safe. She was one of them. She loved rules the way other folks love their kids. At first, it was paperwork, polite letters stamped with the HOA seal telling me to tidy up, fix the fence, remove unauthorized structures. All the little sayings bureaucrats used to sound reasonable. I laughed. I tossed a couple of those letters aside, because I had the deed. My land had been independent for over a century, wasn't in their map, and I wasn't moving. But the letters kept coming, and courtesy got replaced with implication, potential fines, non-compliance, that kind of language that isn't a threat but smells like one. Then Karen started the rumor mill, the soft-run whisper. "Have you seen the people going in and out of that house?" she'd murmur at meetings. "And what's with the clutter in his yard?" Her voice had a practiced worry, like a TV host reading a script, and neighbors repeated it like scripture. Soon someone left a broken chair against my fence. Someone else dumped soda cans on my driveway. Not accidents, deliberate drops timed for cameras. And drones started circling overhead, buzzing like locusts while my garden tried to grow. I didn't yell, I didn't get my shotgun involved. I documented dates, times, camera files saved to multiple drives, because I'd seen tactics like this before. Make the target react, then use that reaction as justification. But Karen kept stoking the fire. At the monthly meeting she framed me as a looming risk, a potential menace, speaking louder than the evidence, and folks with coffee in their hands nodded, uncomfortable and convinced. "We can't wait until something terrible happens," she said, and that was the moment the neighborhood stopped being a place and started being a mob in waiting. I tried to live through it, I really did, fix the porch, water the beds, keep my head down, but harassment escalates if it's allowed to breathe. Then came the night everything changed, tires screaming, the metal bite of my gate torn from its hinges, and then the sight that freezes a man in his boots. Uniformed HOA security swarming the yard, flashlights slicing the dark, clipboards clicking like a battalion. They banged the door, then kicked, then were inside shouting about drugs and dangerous activity. And I stood there in my robe, heart thudding, watching men upend drawers, throw open cabinets like junkyard dogs. That paper they waved at me wasn't a warrant. It was a glossy forgery with Karen's name on it, printed pretty as a lie, no judge, no seal, no legal standing, just enough ink for bullies to pretend authority. They trashed the place, and one careless shove sent a framed photo of me and my wife crashing, glass like rain across the floor. I remember the way the light hit those shards, how the silence got heavy and wrong. One guard even laughed, "Karen's gonna love this when we bring her the evidence." And I thought, you can almost hear the planning in a line like that, the arrogance of people who believe their mission justifies everything. I called the police. I didn't scream, I didn't beg, I stated the facts. "Officers, my house is being invaded, they destroyed my gate and door." The sirens came, red and blue bleeding over the yard, and when the officers watched the footage, the guard battering the gate, the shoving in the hallway, their faces changed from routine to something else, something like recognition of wrong. Karen arrived, pearls and practiced concern, almost on cue, but the lead officer didn't buy the act. "Ma'am, this is criminal trespass and property damage," he said, and that was that. Here's the twist you never expect in your own story, Marcus. I didn't know his name the first hour because he kept his head down, but when chaos was loudest he slipped me a folded note. I recorded orders, meet me. A guard who had a conscience, who'd been handed a script and decided he couldn't play his part anymore. Later he gave us audio, crisp, shaky at first, then steady, of voices giving instructions. "Make it look like a tip. create leverage. And there, cool as ice, Karen's voice. Do it tonight, get what we need. Marcus's recordings, combined with my cameras, were the kind of evidence you can't drown in PR. A witness from the inside. That's the kind of twist that flips the table. Marcus's testimony showed intent. And intent in a courtroom turns what looks like a chaotic mess into a plan, a conspiracy to manufacture cause. My lawyer, Evelyn Carter, she smelled this like a bloodhound. She gathered the footage, the forged papers, the HOA emails, the witness list, and she built a case that made the polite folks in the gallery squirm. At trial, Evelyn played the tape, and the room fell the way rooms fall for a crucial line. You could hear the paper rustle, the faint intake before a lie, convicted by sound. Marcus testified, steady as a man who knows he did the right messy thing, and the defense did their dance about misunderstanding. But when your PR ends with a judge listening to you give orders to stage a raid, the dance loses its rhythm. The jury saw my gate, the broken door, the scattered keepsakes, and heard the cold instructions on the audio. The verdict that followed felt like a rare thing. Justice that actually looks like justice. They found Karen guilty, forgery, false reports, orchestrating an unlawful invasion. The judge handed down restitution and jail time, because words matter and fabrications cost people. I won't pretend I cheered when they put cuffs on her. It wasn't jubilation, it was a relieved, quiet kind of closure, like setting a broken thing in its box and closing the lid. The system worked that day for me, and that's not something I take lightly. Recovery took time, new doors, a new frame where the photo had landed, evenings where the attic smelled like book glue again and not fear. But people changed. The neighbor who'd kept his head down showed up with a toolbox and stayed until the fence stood straight again. A young mother brought pie and an offer to help repair the photograph frame. The small kindnesses are what stitch a place back together. Some folks stayed away, shame is a stubborn shadow, but enough hands came to make a difference. What still wakes me at 2 a.m., though, isn't the memory of that night, it's the lesson. Karen wasn't just one bad apple. She was evidence of how local power can be warped into cruelty if no one checks it, how rules become weapons when someone gets clever with forms and whispers. I was lucky. I had cameras, Marcus had a conscience, Evelyn had a spine. Most folks don't have all three. So if you take anything from this, it's this: document, record, don't give the bully the reaction he wants, and find someone who will listen. Months later, Maple View held a community renewal, a block party with food and music, and they invited me as an honored guest, which felt odd and then strangely good. I stood on my repaired porch, watching kids run with paper crowns, listening to neighbors laugh, and I felt the kind of peace that's quiet and stubborn, not flashy but honest. I still water the garden at dawn. I still sit on that creaky step at dusk, and when the pines breathe I remember the bargain I made. Stand for the small things, and sometimes the big things stand with you. Before I sign off, I want to leave you with something to chew on. When someone says they're acting for the community, who watches that person? When safety is used to justify terrorizing a neighbor who gets to call foul. Have you had to stand up to a neighbor with more power than sense? And if so, how did you do it? Drop a comment, tell your story, and if you know someone being bullied by an HOA or a local power broker, share this, because sometimes knowing you're not alone is the thing that starts the right fight.